Okay.
And what a transition.
And we're off.
We're live.
All right. What is up, my friends? It is winter, fall. I'm not really sure where we are. It's December.
Yes.
And today, Griff and I are going to talk about our top 5 baits that we love to throw this time of the year in December. If you guys want to join in on a cool tackle lure geeking conversation about December bass fishing, hop along. You ready?
Let's go.
All right, let's do it. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. Oh, what a stud.
Yeah. Look at that.
That was sick.
Cheers, my friends. Happy Sunday. All right, guys, some breaking news. What's new this week at the Hookup Tackle?
What a beautiful post-spawn fish.
Look at that.
Look at that gut on that.
That's a nice fish.
All right, welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, a tackle otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy Griff at G Spokes on Instagram and at Hell Yeah Fishing on YouTube.
Hell yeah.
Proud of you there, guy.
Hell yeah.
Started a new channel. Check it out. Make sure you subscribe. Just don't tell him it's better than this channel. There's another bum that has his own channel too. That's CJ over there at Desert Bass, and pay no attention to that guy.
Yeah.
I'm out there. You can check it out.
He's there. Yeah, mid. He talks a lot.
Posted a video once.
Yeah.
I think
Last year he posted a video.
yeah, like once every 2 years usually is a good spell. It's just for the algorithm, really.
Perfect. Yeah, as long as you're staying on top of it. So we are at that time of the year where, you know, no matter where you are, you're probably cold.
Yeah.
Our water temps are in the low to mid 60s,
Yep.
which for us is freezing. It's going to start getting down into the 50s. Every once in a while, come February, we see a 40-degree water temp, but usually it's, you know, low 50s to low 60s. So for us, this is kind of like our winter season. I would say late fall, early winter. Would you consider it kind of the same?
Yeah. Late fall, early winter makes the most sense.
Yeah. So, you know, depending on where you guys are, a lot of these techniques might apply to your water as well. Some of you guys are just staring at ice, so none of this can apply to you. But we're going to talk about some really cool presentations that might have a lot of game for you guys once things thaw out. But if you guys are pond fishing or lake fishing, river fishing, everything in my arsenal is going to apply. I'm excited to see where Griff's mind is this time of the year.
It all applies.
Okay, it's going to all apply
It
to you.
all applies.
Okay, why don't you start us?
Okay.
Or how are we doing this? Are you just picking randomly, or are we starting like your first pick, second pick? How are we gonna go through these baits?
Let's just go from right to left.
Okay, so is this your bait number 1?
Yep.
Okay, bait number 1 for you.
All right. Lucky Craft 2.5 square bill is my number 1. I
Interesting.
think this is my favorite bait to throw this time of year.
Interesting.
I like the big body of it and I like the shake of it, but I just seem to have so much luck with this bait. I was looking at old footage.
Yeah.
So last year I had an amazing season with this.
Yeah, last year you just absolutely pummeled them on this bait.
Yeah.
Yeah, in gizzard shad.
In this exact
Specific,
color.
yeah, in that specific bait. Everywhere you went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go back to the year prior,
Yeah.
when I flipped my kayak.
I tried to forget that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The video where I flipped my kayak,
Yeah.
I was catching them on this bait. It was this time of year.
Yep.
I was catching them on this bait, and it
Yeah.
was just like, I wasn't really paying attention to that then.
Yeah.
But I noticed that every time it gets cold, I just grab the 2.5.
Interesting. What do you think it is about? So obviously, pretty much everybody watching is going to own a square bill.
Yes.
Right? And most of us own like a 1.5.
Yeah.
What is it about the 2.5? Because now we've really gone up in size pretty substantial. I know it's just one number, but it's a totally different
It's
bait.
almost double.
Right.
Yeah.
Why do you think this time of the year this is an effective bait? And why are you still fishing shallow? Shouldn't everything be deep? I mean, in theory, when it gets cold, doesn't everything go deep?
But it's not really cold, right? So for us, you know, 60 degrees, it's pretty warm.
Yeah, true.
I flipped my kayak and I wasn't even shivering.
Right.
Right?
You're crying.
Yeah, I was pissed.
There were
I
some
thought he was
rods
gonna
lost.
fucking beat the shit out of me out there. But
Well, you probably deserved it, CJ.
Yeah.
I filmed the whole thing.
As
I
I
should have
came-
helped, but I'm standing there with my camera.
As I turned around, he was just like,
Yeah, just in case you guys don't know what we're talking about, if you're new to the channel, CJ will leave a link. You should definitely watch this. Okay, it'll be up here somewhere.
It's great. You don't want to miss it.
it's got a bigger profile. It definitely moves a lot more and pushes a lot more water, right?
Yeah.
And I think because these bass are getting ready for, you know, not eating as much, they're still in this crazy fall feed for us. And it's just a bigger meal, a better opportunity. I'm not like burning it, so I'm still moving it pretty slow. So I feel like they're just taking it as an opportunity to just eat something bigger.
It's just a big bait.
Yeah.
And they're used, I mean, let's be honest, in a few months, everything's going to be spawning.
Yes.
Right? So everything's kind of at its max size, I would say, right now. Your threadfin, your gizzard, like everything's kind of grown through the season and it's kind of at that size. You're not seeing a lot of tiny little bait really right now. So it makes sense that a big bait. Are you throwing the same size if you're fishing a little pond or you're fishing a river or a lake?
Yeah.
You're sticking with the 2.5.
If I go to the river, I throw this. Colorado River, I'm throwing it.
Yeah.
Bartlett, I'm throwing it.
So lake, wherever.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's getting bit. It's being bit really, really well for me.
Yeah.
So
any particular type of structure you're looking for this time of the year?
rock. I'm just looking for rock.
Okay.
And then I you know, deflection is key with the crankbait, right? So the best thing for me to deflect a crankbait on is rock.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I love it.
Sick. All right. Good first pick, sir.
It's all going downhill from here.
All right. So I don't know how you made your baits right to left. I made mine left to right by how I like to kind of start.
Okay.
So what I feel like happens this time of the year when it gets cold, when we look, we chose wisely.
Yeah.
Right? So we live in a place where here we are in December and it's just starting to get cold, right? A lot of you guys have been suffering through this for a while. As water temps start to cool and they start pushing down into the 50s and approaching that 40-degree mark, the bass kind of instinctively know to feed. Like they know that, okay, it's gonna get cold, my metabolism's dropping, I'm gonna feed, I'm gonna eat up. And so they will look for areas where there's forage.
Yes.
Right? So with your bait, you're catching them on kind of shaddy type stuff, fish that are relating to shad.
Yes.
Right? And my bait's very similar where I start. I feel like fish will follow the bait fish one way or the other this time of the year.
Okay.
Right?
Down or
So
up?
yeah, I think a lot of bait kind of migrates down to be in more stable conditions, and I think a lot of bass follow them. And you'll see a lot of guys this time of year catching them on spoons. Like I know you love throwing a spoon this time of the year too. You'll see guys catch them on A-rigs. You'll see guys, catching them out deeper. But a lot of those fish will move shallow too, right? Which is what you're throwing.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing, just with something a little bit different. So for me, December, January, February, this is my favorite time to be throwing a lipless. So a lot of guys will wait until there's a lot of vegetation, until there's lots of things to kind of rip a lipless out of. For me, I like throwing a lipless around rock this time of the year. So probably you and I are fishing the same stuff.
Yeah.
We're just approaching it slightly different.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So now if I'm fishing a place like the Colorado River where there's a lot of vegetation, then obviously, I can fish it around grass, rip it out of grass. But really what I'm looking for is I'm looking for kind of rock transition areas, somewhere where maybe it goes from big boulders to like pea gravel, or maybe kind of bluff faces to like kind of chunk rock and then back to bluff. And the fish will use those little transition areas to feed. And first thing in the morning, last thing at night, those fish will get inches shallow. I mean, they will move way up there, even if it's cold. I could be in bibs and down and everything. Those fish will be there because those crawdads will be moving around. The shad will be seeking any warmth that might be coming with the sun. And I just think that a lipless first thing and last thing is an amazing way to get them because it creates sound. Remember, our water is much darker in the winter than it would be first thing in the morning, say in, June, right? That sun is on a much lower path. So you have that darker kind of safe, lightish hour, like a true hour versus like a 10-minute window in the summer. So I like a lipless because it creates some sound, it lets them know it's there. And if you use the right one, I like a lipless that I can grind and it's got a little bit of a tighter movement to it. So for me, usually I'll start with like an LV500 or a Vibex Ultra. I really love something in a chartreuse color this year, or this time of the year. I find that something in a chartreuse first thing in the morning and last thing at night is a great trigger color, both for clear and dirty. Of course, use whatever color is working on your body of water. If they're feeding on crawdads, and use something maybe red or brown. If they're feeding on thread fins, I think chartreuse is a great way. If you need something smaller, Duo makes a G-Fix that's pretty amazing. It's really small, really thin, really tight, has a nice sound to it. This would be a good, more finessey option, maybe for a little pond. But even though these are 3/4 of an ounce or 5/8 of an ounce, I find that they're pretty snag resistant.
Yeah.
And I can throw them right up on the bank, pop them through. I've seen you catch a ton of great fish on lipless this time of the year as well, especially in river systems, right? So for me, that's always kind of my starting point would be a lipless.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
From right to left.
All right, right to left. This one?
Yeah, those
Both
two.
of these?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go, sir.
So, a lot of my bait choices are gonna really be dependent on where I'm fishing.
Okay.
Like, there's some things I can do everywhere, but there's some things that I can only do in certain places. So, I have this amazing river system by my house, and the tailspin this time of year is sick. Right? So my two favorite tailspins are going to be this Zorro 45 and the Makippa. All right, the Makippa 7 gram seems to be the magical number for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Lighter because of shallow water, lighter because
Yeah.
of retrieve speed.
I'm literally fishing in like 8 to 10 inches of water.
Okay.
Right? These are rapids they're just going over, and the shad just sit in these rapids, and the bass you'll just watch them like, finning out, bam, smashing shad, and they'll dip out. They'll just come back in and hit the shad.
Yep.
So this is small enough to get in there to where I can cast it pretty far up the rapids, and I can burn it in, and it's not really gonna hit the bottom or come out of the water. It's just gonna go straight. It doesn't really do much on that, but I mean they tear it up.
Yeah.
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 So, and then when I need a bigger presentation, I just go with the Zorro. The Zorro is plastic.
Yep.
So it's not that metal tailspin that we're used to.
Right.
So it doesn't sink as fast, even though the weight's up there. It's like ½ ounce, just over ½ ounce. So you got a little bit more control of it, and then it'll get thrashed around in those rapids and look like a fish that's actually getting tossed around. It's pretty cool.
I think a tailspin's a misunderstood bait. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people just haven't really ventured into the tailspin like genre.
Yeah.
But I mean, it can be super effective, especially when they're on that or that shad chase.
Yeah.
Like it gets bit. Like even at like Ples, they'll eat the shit out of
This time of the year, I've had some of the most epic, like December, January, early February bites of my life on a tailspin.
Yeah.
And something to keep in mind about tailspin. Tailspin's a great controlled depth bait. So we talk about a spy bait a lot for being like a controlled depth bait. Tailspin is very similar. So it's a great one if fish are sitting like in channels or ditches where you have a long area that's all, say, 15 foot, right? It's a great bait to throw out, let it sink to the top of whether it's rock or little bushes or whatever, and then just straight retrieve. It will hold that depth almost the whole way of your cast. Very hard to get a bait to control depth in reaction. When you think of like crankbaits are always diving, so it's almost always down or coming up.
Yeah.
Jerkbaits are always kind of up and down. This is a great controlled depth option.
Oh yeah, these ones are sick.
Yeah. All right, cool. Good choice. All right, for me, I'm also going with something with a blade on it.
Ooh.
But I'm going with a spinnerbait. Okay, so I absolutely love a spinnerbait this time of the year. What's amazing about a spinnerbait, kind of any time of the year, but this time of the year especially, is you can very effectively fish this on the bank, fish it in 8 to 10 foot of water, turn around and fire it into 25 feet.
Yeah.
I mean, you can fish every depth with a spinnerbait pretty quickly.
Yes.
Yep.
And so for me, like, I like to start with the lipless and just cover some bank that I know, like, all right, this 100-yard stretch, there should be some fish feeding. And if I start whacking them, I can turn back around, and then they lay off it. I can cover the same thing with the spinnerbait, and now there's a little bit more light. They can see a little bit better. Maybe they're not reacting to all that rattle, but I'm still feeding them something that's kind of shady, right? If they're not chewing, I could just fish it out a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper until I maybe come across them. It's also a great one in wind. So a lot of our mornings, unfortunately, are windy and freezing cold.
Yep.
And a spinnerbait's an awesome thing to throw in the wind because it's just easy to cast. It creates a lot of sound, a lot of flash. It's broken up in the wind. So I really like a spinnerbait this time of year. I prefer something with a really light wire in the winter. And I like something a little more full size. So something like a Blitz Max would be kind of usually like a starting point for me. Something I don't need that little compactness. You know what I mean?
Full size light wire.
Full size light wire. The light wire vibrates extra hard. So again, sticking with that same kind of concept where the light's a little bit lower in the horizon. They're not getting quite as bright of, it's not like that light of God that happens in June where the sun's like up and it's just like, you know, straight over them. There's always shadows. There's always like more darkness, right? A lot of times, certain sides of the lake might not get any light.
Yeah.
It might just be shade the whole day, right?
Yeah.
So that light wire helps that vibration increase and they can feel it a little bit better. I've just had a lot more success with light wire spinnerbaits this time of the year. Half ounce is usually my starting point. I'll go to a 3/4 if I need to fish out deeper. Super easy to do. I love a spinnerbait. I pretty much just take it out of the package and throw it this time of the year. I don't like to mess with trailers right now because really I want the bait to get to the bottom. As soon as you put a trailer on, it tends to kind of lift it up a little bit. I don't want it to lift up. I want it to go on the bottom and I want to just slow roll this thing. I want to drag it. Basically everything you're doing with your square bill. I just want to knock it around on stuff, but I'll just fish different depths till I connect with them. So there you go. The Ray Level Spin's another great one. I like this one for smaller bodies of water. So if I'm fishing ponds or something like that, I like this one because it's still full size, but it's a little more compact. But on a big lake, something like a high pitcher max, something just full size blade. Gancraft makes a great one too. Killer's bait. Just something that's got some body to it. There you go.
All right.
All right. Number 3.
One day I'm gonna get a spinnerbait figured out. Dude,
You love the spinnerbait.
Bro, yesterday I went and I was struggling to catch fish, so I had there was a spinnerbait in my kayak, so I was like, it's a pink O.S.P one. I was like, I'm just gonna tie this on. I made this cast right next to this tree, and man, I swung on this fish, and my drag just went totally loose. Like, I was like, oh no. I was fixing it, and I swung again just to try to set it.
Yeah.
And it comes to the boat, and it's the biggest fish of the fucking week. And he's just right there, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the one. Then boop, spinnerbait out of the mouth.
Just see blades coming back at you. That's tough. That's a bummer.
I'm like, man.
Yeah.
And then I threw it in a tree.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. You know what? That was a loser spinnerbait anyway.
Yeah,
Lost
loser
a
bait.
fish into a tree. I think it's something that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of times people think spinnerbait needs to be like the same rod as a chatterbait, right? Like soft. But spinnerbaits flex so much that if you don't have a strong hook set or a powerful enough rod, that thing just flexes. So when you swung and your drag slipped and the thing flexed.
Oh yeah.
That fucking thing never penetrated.
It was all bad.
Yeah, it was all bad.
It was all bad.
All right, here you go, sir. Sucky spinnerbait guy.
Better luck next time.
All right. So for my third bait,
Only Griff.
this is absolutely my favorite bait ever.
Ever.
Just period?
Yeah, period.
Period.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my favorite technique is the popper.
Yeah.
My favorite bait is the Pop Max.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So more than a gong.
Yes.
I was
The
really
gong-
expecting to see it gone.
Wow.
The gong
Kinda
is
bummed.
dope. So
Yeah.
I can throw this bait all year and get bit on it. If
You can.
yeah.
Yeah.
If you follow my Instagram stories, I was going on a tear with this the other day.
You were. Yeah.
know those
I
guys.
was rolling.
There's
I'm
guys
like
in the
Only
northern
Griff,
part of the country
December,
right now.
Pop Max. I mean, literally right now, while we're filming this, there's people out at the same place you're catching popper fish with a drop shot and 4-pound line in 60 feet of water trying to catch 1-pounders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing ever. Like, I don't know what happens. When it gets cold, people are like, oh, they're deep. And they just go there, but they don't realize.
I think people get confused with the air temperature and the water temperature. Because the air is going to get colder faster than the water, right? So they're like, oh man, it's freezing cold. It's like 67 degrees outside.
Right.
So I need to throw a drop shot.
Someone up north is pissed right now.
Oh, dude, we get a lot of hate. That's okay. And we chose wisely.
Yeah.
We're warm.
Live in
reading your
Arizona.
hate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you working this different because
I'm
it's winter?
just slowing down.
Slowing down. Okay.
So normally I'm doing the walking bait walk with it normal, right?
Yep.
So now it's like twitch it,
Yep.
quick second pause,
Yep.
twitch it, quick second pause, twitch it, and I'm not working it all the way back to me. I'm targeting structure. Once I get out of the structure or the cover,
Yep.
I'm just reeling it up and making my next cast. So I'm making a ton of casts with it, but it's getting bit. So the popper is one of the most effective ways to catch fish, period.
Yep.
So when you can do it all year round, it's pretty dope.
Yeah.
You get those fish that are just, tucked up in the trees because the trees are warmer than the actual water, and they'll sit there and that would just be up there, and then on that pause, that feather's opening,
Yep.
the bait's kind of like shaking, they're just gonna take a bite at it.
I think if you can force yourself to slow down, if you look at shad when the water cools, they're not like frantic,
Yeah.
right? A lot of times, especially when that water creeps into the 50s,
Mm-hmm.
they have kind of a almost an exaggerated movement. Like
Yeah.
they kind of move and then they kind of stop, right? And they kind of move and they kind of stop, and they're seeing that.
Yeah.
So when you have a popper that is kind of moving and it's creating sound and they can see it, and then that feather starts opening,
Yeah.
it's actually one of the most effective like single shad imitating winter baits I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's dope and it works good.
Yeah,
I think you can even get into colder waters, right?
no question.
Yeah, and still work it. You just have to work it differently.
Some of the greatest smallmouth bites I've ever had, December, January. I mean, it's snowing out, it's 10 degrees, and they're smoking a Rico.
Oh yeah.
But you gotta slow down. It's so hard sometimes to slow down,
Yeah.
especially when you're staring at the bait, right?
Yeah.
But it's almost one of those things where you gotta hit it and like literally just let, like old school, like let the ripples completely go, right? And then when you think you need to move it, just give yourself another minute.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
it's just sitting there and those feathers just doing what they're doing. Smallmouth just crush that thing, especially if it's suspended cold water smallmouth, like on bluff walls or steeper banks. Dude, they destroy
Yeah.
the popper.
They'll eat it.
Yeah. As crazy as you are, you're right. That's an amazing
Yeah.
December
And
bait.
it's fun.
And it's fun. Yeah.
It's a dope
Good
bait.
choice.
I like where this is going.
Am I right?
You're right. Can't deny that.
Choice number 3 for me. All right, so this is something that I actually picked up from you a couple years ago, and it's become one of the hotter techniques in Japan now. Okay, and that's walking a crankbait.
Yes.
Pretty much I live on something like this. Now, usually a smaller crankbait. So the Drunker is a staple. You can do it with an Evoke 1A. You can do it with a Super Z. Not every crankbait walks.
No.
Okay. You can do it also with a Magnum. Not as easy. Okay. So I put the Magnum in here just because sometimes they're deep. You need to throw across a point. But this is really kind of where I'm living. So what I mean by walking a crankbait is obviously you can take a crankbait, you can cast it to the bank and wind it, and the thing is going to just, move side to side. But some baits, like the Drunker, are built super flat, and they're designed to have this really kind of flattish movement to them. And if you slow down, you can crank it down to the bottom, and then you can give it the same kind of twitch that you would give like a walking topwater bait or a glide bait, and you can get this thing to actually walk on itself, and it's moving while it's staying in the zone, but you're getting these little mini movements, and I've seen you do it for the last couple years and just absolutely smoke them. And then when I was in Japan a couple months ago, everybody was losing their minds that the trend is shifting to like slowing down and keeping things in the strike zone. and the Drunker is starting to get super popular again. If you guys have fish that are in that shallow zone, you have patience, it's gonna take a little bit of timing, because it's just not like a, if you have a glide bait that's moving really far, you can kind of give it distinct kind of movements. This is a bait that's literally gonna move like 1 inch. Okay, so your movements are like ultra tight. So you gotta kind of wind it down, and then you're literally just barely tapping that rod, and that thing is just gonna walk left and right on you. It's a super deadly way to get them when the fish are just kind of, if they're stuck by a rock, stuck on a boulder, it's super sick.
Yeah, it's gonna bring that reaction instinct out of them.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. There's number 3 for me.
That's a
Crankbait.
cool technique. Yeah.
It is cool. It's slept on for sure.
Everybody here in the shop knows that I love to throw a spoon. Like after
He's
like
a spoon
I
guy.
feel like I just said that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said everything that's left, so
Yeah,
you
that's
mentioned
true.
everything
Okay.
that's left. So,
Unintentionally, by the way.
oh yeah. So this time of year, I'm transitioning from a big spoon like a mag flutter spoon to one of these smaller jigging style spoons. That just imitates a shad a lot better for me. Duo makes this 6 spoon, the drag metal series. There's a slim, there's a slow, there's a cast,
A shot.
a shot. Yeah.
Typical duo fashion, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a way you like to rig a spoon, they got it, right? Super realistic bait fish looking,
I think sweet.
right? It's not gonna do much when you drop it down to the bottom. It's gonna sink, and you're gonna pop it up, and then it's
So this is more a traditional rip jigging spoon
it's
kind of
gonna-
style. Yep.
It's just gonna be a shad bouncing up and down off the bottom.
Okay.
So when I'm fishing in the deeper water lakes, the spoon is this time of year is super effective.
Are you blind dropping, or are you finding them on your electronics then dropping? How are you finding them?
You gotta find them first.
Okay.
You'll waste a lot of time just dropping a spoon, and then especially when you're using the big stuff, like you're gonna tear your arms up. You gotta find the fish, put your down scan, side scan on, just find the fish, get the spoon, and I'm not really casting it. I'm just dropping it straight down, and I'm just giving it rips, and I'll rip, and then if I see fish are suspended, I'll try to get it up to where they're at, rip it, and then burn it. And a lot of the times I'll catch fish on the burn.
Just because it's triggering them?
Yeah.
Getting a reaction.
Yeah, you'll feel when you're in those big schools of like stripers and white bass and stuff like that, you'll feel them all hitting your lines.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's not a bite, that's not a bite. And you're waiting for the tug.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, there it is. And then you just catch them, dude.
Yeah, it's so sick when you get on a deep spoon bite.
Yeah.
It's just dirty. This is obviously something that's easier to do from a boat when you're using your electronics. Any way you could utilize this from shore, or do you mess with it from shore?
You could do it from shore if you have like a situation like the test pond where there's current and there's rapids. You can get a lighter version and just cast it in there and burn it just like the Tailspin.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
But you can give it pauses because they're a little bit heavier.
Okay.
And they'll sit.
So it's just kind of doing this kind
Yeah.
of thing. You're just imparting the action on your own.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
I've been out at Plez smashing them on this.
On the Metal Master?
On the Metal Master.
Yeah.
It has a ton of movement. So this moves almost as much as like a mag flutter spoon.
Hold
So
that guy a little
it's-
closer, Griff.
It's kicking a lot left and right as it's
dude.
falling.
Yeah, and you'll just watch your line go like 20 feet off to the right with no fish.
They've got
No fish.
that's just from the action.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
just the
shit.
bait.
Okay.
And you're just like, oh man, how did it get over there?
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Are you leaving those hooks? It's kind of a crazy hook system. Are you leaving them, or have you been changing them?
Oh no, these hooks are dope.
You leave them.
Yeah.
Okay.
These hooks are sick.
Yeah.
Single hook.
It's got dual single hooks
Yeah.
on it, and it looks weird because we think treble hook,
Yeah.
spoon treble hook, but
Oh no, this is a good hook.
you've been jacking them. Cool.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Gotcha.
All right.
It's a dope little spoon.
Okay. Number 4 for me.
What you got?
Stay in reaction. I don't want to go deep.
You guys don't want to slow down, do you? It's all reaction, huh?
Calm down.
All gas, no
There's
brakes?
always a worst case scenario thing. It's really hard to beat a jerkbait
Yeah.
this
Yep.
time of the year. Okay, so for me, if I've got any kind of breeze and I know they're relating to bank, the stuff I've already talked about is where I go. Because I feel like big ones relate to the bank, active ones relate to the bank. They're up shallow trying to feed, but they're not always there, obviously. Sometimes they suspend out. Winter fish love to feed shallow, suspend mid. So it's not like they're gonna feed shallow in the morning and then swim down to 40 feet and then move back up shallow in the evening. they'll just suspend out to the first place that's safe for them. So if they're feeding, you know, shallow on crawdads or shad in the morning, once that sun comes up and they're done feeding, they'll just pull out and suspend off a point, off a tree, whatever the first place is. And if the weather is windy, spinnerbait's usually the way I'm going to jack them. But if it's one of those days it's just like glass calm and still, it's next to impossible to beat a jerkbait. So I love a jerkbait this time of the year. Now, this for me, I wish Jeff was here so I could make fun of him, because color is super, super critical this time of the year. You will find, if you guys start throwing a jerkbait right now and you throw it all the way through spring, you are going to see that there are some distinct color shifts as we approach winter, get out of winter, and the days start getting longer. The colors that trigger the fish change a lot over the next 4 months. Now, this is going to be, you know, body of water specific. Obviously, you guys might live somewhere where they only want purple or gold or whatever, right? But traditionally, this is the time of the year where the white colors are going to really be key. So I'm looking at things like French pearl, stain reaction, matte shad. You know, Wakasagi colors can also be good because they're kind of darker. So your darker bait fish patterns or your white bait fish patterns is really what I'm looking for here. So either Wakasagi or white. As we get closer to spring and we start getting runoff and the water gets a little murky, you're going to see a transition to more like goldish tones and things that have a little bit more flash. As we get closer to spawn, you're going to see some of the brighter colors or transparent colors depending on where you live. That's when you're like GP Pro Blues, or Leggy Bones, or maybe like your Fire Crawl type colors start to play. But this time of the year, next to impossible to beat white or some type of Wakasagi. 110 is usually my starting point. It pretty much always is. If I needed to get a little bit deeper, I might go to a +1 or a +2, or lately we've been throwing this level Minnow Plus, which is basically like a +1. It's a great one to get down that 8 to 9 foot. If it's windy and I need to make a lot of noise, pointer 100.
Yep, easy.
This is the best time of the year for me on a pointer 100. Now, there are times too where I might substitute a jerkbait for like a Stacy or some kind of like shad kind of bait where I'm more pulling. But day in and day out, just a straightforward jerkbait for me is kind of what I love to do. So there you go. Now, I might play with line size here if I'm fishing open water. This is a time of year you get away with throwing on 6 pound, 7 pound, get it down a couple feet deeper. No problem doing it because the fish are usually a little bit more lethargic. So once you hook them, as long as there's not anything for them to run into, you can play them out on lighter line.
Yep.
There you go.
That's my jerkbait line.
Another thing I noticed.
Yeah?
7.
7?
7.
That's your jam?
Yeah.
Man.
Maxing it out, nice.
I'm usually like a 10 or
year.
12.
All year.
Yeah,
7.
interesting.
Another
All
thing
right.
I noticed too is work it all the way back to the boat.
Oh,
Even though
yeah.
it's December, you'd be surprised at how many fish you just get right at the boat
Yep.
that you would have missed if you just never reeled it.
Yeah, and I really want this bait to be as close to suspend as possible. So kind of mirroring what you were talking about with your topwater, this is a great time of the year to give it a couple twitches and almost set the rod down and just let it marinate down there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you are seeing a lot of fish follow your bait, which you will get this time of the year, if you're seeing followers, swap that back hook or the front hook with a treble.
Yep.
With a feathered treble, sorry. And that feather will open the same as it's happening on your Pop Max. On that pause, that feather will just kind of open and that'll trigger a lot of those bites. So if you're seeing a lot of followers in jerkbait, throw a feathered treble. I like it on the front hook. Most people like to put it on the back hook. But it doesn't matter, as long as it has some kind of breathing to it. But there you go, there's number 4.
You lose a lot of action on the back hook.
Yeah, and you're kind of giving them a target.
Yeah.
So I've never really understood the back hook. It's how I used to do it. And then they'd always bite the back hook. And then I'm like, well, why don't I put it on the front? And then I put it on the front, they bite the front hook. I'm like, well, that made a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to eat wherever you put it. So let's put it on the front.
Yeah.
Should get a big one.
Yeah. Here you are, sir.
All right.
Hearing some metal over there.
So my next bait is the A-rig. All right. So the A-rig for me, as the water temperature is cooling down, it's super effective. I like the A-rig to fish. I fish it shallow. Like I'll find like bluff walls with a little bit of rock sticking out, where I think these bass are just tucked in there. I'll fish it shallow. And if not, I'll just go into the channel, chuck it out there, fish it a little bit deeper, 20, 30 foot. I'm never usually fishing it too much deeper than that, but I like the A-rig. This one especially, this Ramsey rig that we have, this one's pretty dope because it's got lead on it. It's not just some weird plastic piece that's on there, so it's going to sink, and you have a little bit more control of it with this one, and it's got like this super thick wire on there.
Yeah,
I really like it. And the bait that I use almost exclusively on there is this Huddle swimmer.
you really love that bait on an A-rig.
Yeah, dude.
So this is a super subtle bait.
It doesn't do much.
Most people are used to like K-Tex or something that have a lot of tail kick. This is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Why do you like it on the A-rig?
Cause shad tails don't kick like that. Shads, like, their body kind of like does this.
Yeah.
But they're not really like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So the blades and the rig is making all the commotion.
Got
I
it.
just needed to see the bait and eat the bait.
I see.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not really into like making all the commotion, the body roll and all that. The blades are doing everything for me.
Interesting. Okay. So you're just giving them a target.
Yeah, and because in Arizona we have 2 hooks, right?
Yep.
I just take these right here,
Yep.
and I'll put blades on those also.
Okay, so you're rolling all blades,
Yeah.
2 baits.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that way I'm not wasting dummies, because they will hit the dummies and rip them off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'll just keep the ones with the hooks have the baits and
Yeah.
everything else all blades.
All right.
These are also elastomer too,
Yep.
so they last forever.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Super dope.
All right. Yeah, we don't talk about Imakatsu baits that often.
Yeah.
But
Wow, good
that's
stuff.
a super sleeper.
Oh, dude, the
It's a
Huddle
sick
swimmer is
bait.
dope. Man.
It really is. Cool. All right, number 5. Slowing down, CJ.
I see you're going the opposite direction here.
Okay, so obviously it's a lot of fun to catch them on reaction, but sometimes you just can't get them to go on, chuck and wind stuff. So this is also my favorite time of the year to throw a jig. Okay, now there are times, depending on where you are, that you have to fish a jig on structure because
Yeah.
they're sitting there. They're in 20 feet or 30 feet, and you got to throw on structure. But that's not where I'm starting. I'm fishing the same stuff that I'm throwing my crankbait, my jerkbait, everything. I'm fishing shallow because for me, rewind back 20 years ago, it was jig and pig. Fast forward to now, it's jig and some kind of trail. You could still throw pork. I mean, pork didn't stop working. It's just a pain in the ass to manage because it dries out and you got to fucking take care of it. But I tend to go with some kind of trailer that's not too much movement. I want the bait to just kind of move as a unit, right?
Yeah.
So if you didn't want to mess with this, you could do something like a sleeper crawl even. But I really like a football jig and a trailer. So I'm going to actually put one of these together really quick just to show you. As far as jigs, I really like this Raid Footmaster. This is a newer one. I like this one, and I like the headlock jig a lot. I like this one a lot because it's a true tungsten head. So it's really small. Like, that's a ½ ounce, right? I mean, that's a really small little head. And it's got the eye tie in a place to where if I just lift slowly, it's going to lift the jig up before it moves. So, which gives it just a little added movement, I guess, to it. It has a weed guard. Let me rig this up so you guys can see exactly how cool this is. Now, I'm gonna rig this with a 3-inch Egu chunk or a 3-inch Doe Live Craw. I'm doing one of those two. Doe Live Craw we talk about a lot. Egu chunk, I feel like we talk about it a lot, and I feel like people are just missing it. I don't understand how people don't understand this chunk, but it's a super sick little chunk. I know you've been catching them on a free rig on this thing.
Yeah, so that bait changed my mind on what the best free rig bait is.
Really?
There's got to be a debate about it, and we got to do some testing.
Okay.
But that thing gets bit, dude.
So you're thinking maybe even over a Doe Live Beaver right now?
It's very close. I'm not gonna
Interesting.
say for sure right now. But
Interesting. So this is how it looks without doing any trimming or anything else. It's straight out of the package. Literally just did it, right? I'm just gonna
greasy.
kind of extend. Yep, they are greasy. I'll wipe it off on you.
No.
Oh.
Okay. But there you can see it's super compact, right? So it's small and tight, and all this is doing is just lifting and dropping. You're not having, it's not, if it was spring or summer, I'd do like a double tail or something, right? But this time of the year, I just want it to just kind of be one package, lift and drop, lift and drop. Now, if the fish are feeding actively, I want to throw a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce jig. So I want to do a normal size. Usually the slower the better for me, because I want it to just have that slow kind of subtle fall. Kind of the same thing we talked about with the walk and the crankbait.
Yeah.
If they're not active, I go to 5/8 or 3/4, and I want to try to get a reaction out of them. I want it to fall super fast, right in their face to where they eat it without thinking about it. I'm still fishing super shallow, fishing quick. I'm fishing bluffs, cliffs, backsides of boulders, steep points, bushes, just something where a bass might just be sitting there and it's cold and it's waiting for something. All of a sudden something just falls really fast and it eats it before it thinks about it. It's not like a crankbait where it can hear it and it's just gonna let it swim by. So little compact jig for me, deadly. There's number 5. As far as colors, black is my number 1 color this time of the year. Green pumpkin or brown would be number 2. So usually green pumpkin's my starting point, like what I have. But again, getting back to that darker water, this is the best time of the year to catch them on black. Even if you guys are fishing clear water, black just stands out so good. They chew it this time of the year. It's a super underutilized color also. If you guys are living in clear water, if you're fishing dirty water, you probably throw black or black and blue all year. But if you're fishing cleaner water, they don't see a lot of black and they chew it.
It's so funny when people talk about, and they come in here and they ask us about jig colors. I'm just like, if you look at my jig box, it's literally brown, black, green pumpkin.
Yep.
Brown, black,
That's all
green
you need.
pumpkin.
Yeah. All you need.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Like,
Yeah,
nothing crazy.
It's a simple way to do it, and then you can use trailers to add color if you need color. If
exactly.
you need a flash, if you need a glitter, whatever. But I don't want to get overcomplicated and think, oh, I need 3 strands of blue or 2 strands of chartreuse or blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might live somewhere where they only eat orange.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure,
Then get an
yeah.
orange one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you're just trying to figure out, all right, what do I need? You need a black and you need a green pumpkin. Brown would be a great one to add in. It's just kind of in between, and sometimes it makes a difference, but yeah, that's it.
That makes some sick colors in the
simple.
Eagle chunk too.
They do. Yeah, so if I want a little more color, I could throw like an orange chunk or a red chunk or a blue or whatever.
Or the
And
chartreuse.
chartreuse.
Yeah,
Rock
chartreuse
it out.
is a sneaky one.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is a wrap. Now, obviously, we could have gone down some different rabbit holes. We could have talked about swim baits and glide baits, and that would all have made sense for this time of the year. But we wanted to try to keep it more just like normal bass fishing, because I feel like swim baits and glide baits kind of need their own winter episode,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because we could have spent an hour just on that topic alone.
yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you guys at least a starting point, right? Try those. Let us know what you think. If we missed some staples that you guys always throw this time of the year, we'd love for you to comment down below so collectively we can all learn together. If you have questions, drop them down below too, and either myself or Griff will get you guys some answers. So on behalf of myself and Griff and CJ, everybody here at the Hook Up Tackle guys, thank you for giving us time. Thank you for listening to our nonsense. Thank you for the business. Go catch some fish this December. Enjoy the great, beautiful outdoors. If you live in Arizona or Florida or Texas. If you guys live up north, sorry.
Don't forget your auger.
Stay warm.
Peace.